let's take a look at your second part of your final project, the newspaper column ad. So like I said in class, this one was set up on purpose to be awkward. The logos, the text, the information, all of that is awkward on purpose to sort of show you some of the challenges that we face as designers and to sort of see how you guys navigate those challenges. So I'll scroll through these again like I did the last ones and give you guys some feedback. Some of it will end up being similar, again, as obviously we're all dealing with the same challenges. So we'll see as we go through. But let's take a look at this first one. Some of these previews, the sizing is a little bit off. I know because I'm previewing the Illustrator file here, but I know that the artboard kind of ends, give or take, around here-ish. So some of them look a little bit funky just because the Illustrator file is previewing a little bit awkwardly when I just hit this quick preview. So I think here, this is a great start with how you have your information organized. You have that sort of awkward block of text broken up really well. And again, a great start to how you have some of these logos and some of this space navigated a little bit. What I might do if you have the room, I might bring, well, first I would, they're already all sort of center justified, but I would make sure that they're aligned down the middle relative to each other. So we don't, I think like, it looks like this one's a little bit off to the left, this one's a little bit off to the right, etc. So I might center these with each other, and then that can give you, when you move them left or right, move them as one large group. But I think largely, I think that this block of text is organized really well. What I might do is make this line a little bit bigger, and then you can bring these in a little bit closer, and that'll free up a little bit of room if you wanted to move these three logos. I think they're weighted very well evenly, visually, I should say. I might move them as a group, move them over and center them within this block. And then that will sort of allow you to maybe make this a little bit bigger. If you kept it in the same location here, top left corner, but made this a little bit larger, see how much room you have on this side, to sort of maybe not make it take up the whole space, but a decent amount of this space. Again, sort of nudging these over to the right, and then you can make that lens crafters a little bit smaller, probably. I think that's probably bigger than 10 point, and then just kind of tuck it either into a corner here or into a corner here. And then lastly, I would make that headline. You have a lot of room for your headline. I would play with the fonts or play with the treatment, really make it, a larger, bolder, bigger headline. But I think as far as organization of the information, I think this is done really, really well. Some minor tweaks to make this a really solid design. All right, I'm gonna check out Mars. There we go. This one sort of right off the bat when we're using and resizing, and I'll go to this one, back to Kyle's again. You can see when we resize somewhere, and I can double check it, you want to make sure that you're scaling stroke and effects. I think we lost some of the effects here. We lost some art elements a little bit when we resized. Not a big deal. We can replace that logo. I think again, this one, the headline is really strong. I like the logo on the left. You have this sort of tucked into the corner, which works. I think your logos are visually even well done. You might even be able to make them a little bit smaller or nudge them over so that there's not an overlap here, even nudge this a little bit over. I like your headline. I might have Trick or Treat for a Cause, and then maybe on site night on one line, give or take. I think you're having the opposite challenges to the previous one. Your headline looks good, maybe some minor tweaks. I think where the bulk of your challenge is going to be is sort of organizing this a little bit nicer visually, for lack of a better word. We can break up this paragraph potentially a little bit more, but just kind of stylize those a little bit. Maybe center justified isn't always the answer, but center justifying these might help. A little bit of differentiation between bold and regular text, etc. I think largely, sort of the outside of yours, some minor tweaking, and then, sort of the majority of this is going to be organize it in text in the middle there. And then we can work on the logo. Like I said, I think we lost some elements here, but we can easily replace that and get that looking like it's not missing anything. All right, we'll look at Austin's. So this one is previewing with some transparency because it's saved as a ping. No big deal. So that's why it's a little bit lighter than the other ones. This one, I think we have a decent start with breaking up this big block of info. I think we need to double check our size. Maybe it looks pretty good. The way I have it organized is throwing me off a little bit, but I think the major portion with this one is the logos. We definitely don't need them that big, not to sort of like copy what other people have done, but look at, what some of your classmates did with having those logos, grouping them together as they're sort of like somewhat secondary or they're co-sponsors of the event. You want to make sure that they're visually weighted the same, but also sort of a little bit more organized. If you had your logos down here and then your main logo, a little bit larger, again, sort of framing out this, headline, logo, and then logos, and then this block for text. I think organizing, your major thing is going to be organizing those logos, making them a lot smaller, sort of getting them together, and then finding a spot for them to fit. And I think you have a good start for organizing the text. You have it broken up pretty well. Again, some minor tweaks with that, with the text in the middle, but I think this one is going to be a little bit, you have a good start with how you have it sort of laid out visually. I think it's just going to be tweaking some of those major elements like the logos visually to make things a little bit more even. All right, then we'll check out Amanda's, and then I think I have a JPEG, 2 JPEG, okay. So yeah, I think this one was the first draft. So this is a good example of, again, we talked about this. I talked about this with Amanda in class. So she has sort of a more refined one. But this was her draft. So this is a good example of, again, we talked about the logos being a little bit too large, bringing those down a little bit, and organizing the space, and then organizing that block of text. The headline was there, maybe just making it a little bit bigger, but definitely organizing this block of text. And then we can see in our second one, again, it's the preview is showing a little bit large. I think it comes in, the bounding box is a little bit smaller than that, but you can see how we've made the headline a little bit bigger. We could probably make this main logo a touch bigger if we kept it, give or take, in the same location, and dragged it out so it was a little bit larger here. And then maybe even have this on one line underneath here, or even over here. We could make this LensCrafters logo a little bit bigger, move these two over left and right respectively, and make that a little bit bigger. But the major thing that I wanted to show you was this breaking up of the informational text is done really well. As you can see, obviously there's a huge difference between this giant block of text and then this. Cleaner, easier to read, definitely more visually legible. Lastly, I would kind of make your contact information. You can even have just this line, or even from the end of the number up to the form for more information, even making that bold. And then sometimes a hyphenation, like I would hit a return there, so that's on one line, so your website isn't broken up, but we can work on that. But yeah, I think maybe having this information, contact information, even just bold, if it was the same font, to sort of stand out more, stand out apart from this information. But I think as far as the visual organization overall, I think is really well done. I think some minor tweaks just to kind of clean it up a little bit, and this could be great. All right. Then we'll go, I think I have an Illustrator file. Yes, and a JPEG. So I'll look at the JPEG here. Oops. So we make it a little bit bigger. It might pixelate a little bit, but so Again, I think with this one, a good treatment of all of the visual elements. I think some minor tweaks just to kind of get everything, um, a little bit tighter. I think these three logos as a group, I think the Lions one might be a little bit too big. We can size that down a little bit, maybe by like 25%. And then I think these three logos would be pretty even. And then again, I think maybe tucking it, moving it, bottom right here. So you have your Lions logo, give or take, effectively start here, and then you can have this lens, this copyright information, either be in the corner. It doesn't have to be with this logo. It kind of appears like it's part of the logo, and definitely a client would want that away from their logo. But sort of fitting this information, the three logos within like this kind of area, again, sort of frees up this space to maybe make that a little bit bigger, or even drop it down and have your headline be a little bit bigger, go across the whole top. And again, I think you have this organized really well. I think as far as stylizing this, I think sort of the opposite of what Amanda had going on. I think if we hit a return here so that this was on one line and then the scare up was on another line. But what I might do is make this paragraph a little bit less bold, and then maybe keep these bold. I think, here we still have, the appearance of one large block. Maybe even knock this down a little bit in size just so it's not so cluttered. But I would definitely make this a little bit less bold, and then maybe leave these a little bit bold so that you have more sort of visual importance on the contact number. But I think the way that this is organized is done really well. I think some tweaks with how your logo information is organized, I think we'll tighten this up. Okay. And then again, we have JPEG and an AI file. I'm going to go with, let's see, this one. So I think here, again, we have a good start to organizing the text and the logo information. I think what's happening here is I think our logos are definitely too big. You have this one is much larger than the other two. If you brought this down, again, maybe like 25%, it would be, more along the lines with this lens crafters, and we can get the AAA logo a little bit bigger, maybe put that on so they're effectively all on one line. And then I think you could do sort of like the opposite of what other people were doing, and have this Site Night logo, if you wanted to tuck the three logos in this area, bottom left, and then you could have your Site Night logo a little bit bigger or move it down, and that gives you this area for your headline to go all the way across. And then I would definitely like choose a more stylized font, give it a little bit more of a sort of a different look. You can sort of be a little bit more open creatively with how you stylize your headline. And then I think this, again, if we look at some of the others, I think where you have some of the returns work really well for breaking up the information. But I would just, look and see how your returns, again, you have this hyphen here and then a return. So just kind of like visually organizing the information, maybe make this a little bit smaller, and that would give you some room to hit a return, or to break up those blocks of text. And then again, separate the informational block a little bit more. But I think, kind of doing the opposite of what some of the others were doing. Let's see, like this. Let's go to Mars. Yeah, Mars has hers on the right side too. But how we have this kind of framing that we're starting to see, here. You can kind of do the opposite of this, have your logo on this side, but, kind of break up the text a little bit more like that. Have your logos on this side, main logo on this side, headline on the top, but, you kind of get the idea. There we go, of what we're working with there. But yeah, I think you have a good start to breaking up the information, and working with the text and tightening this up a little bit more. All right, checking out Lauren's. Again, like I said, I think a lot of this feedback is going to be somewhat similar, but again, a great start with your headline. Again, we have more of the visual information on the outside left. I think we could make this Lens Crafters logo a little bit bigger to sort of even it out with these three. And then I like how you have this sort of tucked into this area. I might bring this legal line down to the bottom. This might free you up to make your logo a little bit bigger, the main logo a little bit bigger. And then your major area of, not that it's going to be particularly a lot, but your major area of tweaking, I think, is going to be this area here, breaking up these blocks of text like you have. You can still keep it left justified. That's totally fine. But I think maybe trying a combo again. If you had this like 10th annual site night on one line, center here, and then you could have this, the rest of this block left justified, and then have your contact information maybe center justified, and then a little bit bolder like this, and then maybe have this help the world center justified closer to your logos. So I think the bulk of your work is going to be just kind of breaking up and organizing this block of text a little bit more, so it's a little bit more visually legible, and then just tweaking the logos a little bit. I think your headline looks great. Maybe even putting it on two different lines if you needed to fill some space a little bit. But yeah, I think overall just formatting your copy is going to be where yours is going to have the most tweaking, but I think a really strong start. All right, so we have newspaper 2. All right, so 2 and 3, so we'll go with 3. So this one, our format is opposite. This needs to be landscape rather than portrait, so I think that's going to help free up a lot. And then you'll see, I would suggest looking at some of the feedback and some of the examples that your classmates have done to sort of organize the information. I like the idea of having these graphics. I think for yours, it's really gonna, when you flip your format, that's really gonna free you up, I think, to organize your information. I would, oh yeah, so this is copy from the assignment. You can lose that. The only copy you need is the actual like this copy, the copy that's in the description. This is my description. So you can get rid of this, and then you can just have, you don't need to copy this line. You can just have just the copyright 2016, blah, blah, blah. So you can get rid of my information. But I think having these lines to sort of visually break up blocks of information might work. I think, again, when you flip your format, I think that's going to help free up a lot of space. And you're also missing the AAA logo. So we want to make sure that we have the 3 logos together, visually sort of evenly distributed, optically. And again, flipping that format, I think, is going to help you to organize this text a lot more, so it's not so squished and sort of stuffed vertically. Vertically is very, very awkward. But yeah, I think we can work on this in class for sure. But again, I think you have a pretty good start with the graphics. Again, sort of carrying this. If we want to work that in either vertically or horizontally, we can take a look at that when we're in class next. All right, then we have Eileen's with a different look. Okay, there's the AI file. Okay, I had 2 files. I wanted to make sure that they were, one wasn't different. So definitely a different treatment. I think this works pretty well. I think some minor tweaks. I like the idea of having this logo be in the center. I think where we can tweak this a little bit would be in this information, depending on how large this font actually is. We could probably make this a little bit smaller, so there's not so many returns. So there's not so many returns in that, so it sort of, not physically, but somewhat physically reads a little bit better. But I like how you have your information, essentially your information block on the right, logo middle, or contact information on the right, logo middle, and then your information on the left. I think we could make the Lens Crafters logo a little bit bigger, and then that will allow you to sort of spread these out a little bit, to sort of more evenly distribute them, and then potentially we'll have to see, but potentially either tuck that legal disclosure left or right. Keep it away from the logos, maybe make it a little bit smaller. I would do at least, I know it said minimum 10 point, but usually I should just say 10 point fonts because you don't need to make it bigger. It's just legal. It's not visual or design or anything. So you might as well keep it at the minimum. But yeah, I think making this Lens Crafters logo a little bit bigger, maybe spreading out these, even, I'm not sure it would work, but if we sort of justified the logos right-ish, and then that might free up space to bring your text down. And now that I'm actually saying that, I'm not sure that that would actually work visually, but we could see. But yeah, I think either, maybe making this text actually a little bit smaller, so that there's less returns, and then sort of leaving this alone and leaving your headline alone. But I like the idea of having your logo, your main logo center. It's a little bit trickier to work with the text, but I think if done effectively, it can work really well.